Picture this. September 2026, Bloomsbury. In a darkened gallery, a strip of linen older than Parliament waits behind glass, its wool horses still charging. For the first time in more than 9 centuries, the Bayeux Tapestry is scheduled to stand on British soil again. But this is not only a museum loan, it is a medieval message returning to the country it helped remake. And like every political message, we have to ask 2 questions. Who wrote it, and who was meant to believe it? The object we call the Bayeux Tapestry is not a tapestry at all. It is embroidery, wool thread sewn into linen. 9 linen panels, joined together, run about 68 meters. Not a painting, not a scroll, a moving picture stitched by hand. Stand close and the drama shrinks to texture. Stem stitches, laid stitches, red-brown horses, mustard cloaks, blue-green ships and tiny hooves. Step back. The planned British Museum display runs from September 2026 to July 2027, according to the announced Anglo-French Cultural Loan Agreement. That journey matters, because the cloth has lived most of its recorded life in Normandy, close to the cathedral city of Bayeux. Many historians connect its commission to Bishop Odo of Bayeux, William's half-brother, and to Bayeux Cathedral, consecrated in 1077 itself. If Odo stood behind it, then this was not folk memory. It was elite memory, funded by power and displayed under sacred stone. Imagine worshippers entering the cathedral nave. Incense hangs low, candles tremble, above them a stitched Conquest unrolls like proof itself. The embroidery tells the Norman version of 1066. Harold Godwinson takes the English crown, William of Normandy invades Hastings, decides the throne. But the story begins before the arrows and shields. It begins with a promise, or at least with the image of one. On the cloth, Harold appears to swear an oath to William over holy relics, a scene central to Norman claims of legitimacy. We do not hear Harold's voice. We do not hear what he thought he promised. The embroidery gives us gesture, not testimony. That is the first lesson. Medieval images can look simple, but they argue. They select, arrange, exaggerate, and leave things out. In other words, this cloth behaves like a campaign film. It frames William not as invader, but as rightful claimant arriving. Harold becomes the oath breaker. William becomes the man wronged. The invasion becomes not aggression, but a necessary royal correction instead. The Bayeux Museum notes the work uses wool yarn on linen, with stitch techniques that create outlines, figures, weapons, animals, and borders. Those borders matter. Look down there, beneath kings and ships, and you find beasts, fables, plowmen, naked bodies, warnings everywhere. The main strip says Conquest. The margins whisper anxiety. Order above. Strange little worlds below. Medieval audiences knew how to read both. The surviving embroidery is about 8.3 meters long, yet its ending is damaged, leaving part of the final story missing. For listeners used to instant damage,
follow the story, your body has to move alongside the image.
That movement matters, because medieval viewing was physical. You processed the Conquest step by step, almost as if walking beside an army. The stitching also slows violence down. A spear is not a blur. It is a line someone made, patiently, through cloth. That patience can feel unsettling. The image of war survives because peaceful hands spent hours making war visible for others. That missing ending feels almost too perfect. The cloth that tried to settle the argument leaves us with an argument. Was it made in England by English embroiderers? In Normandy? Under Odo's eye? Scholars still tug carefully at those threads. Some details feel startlingly English, the workmanship, the knowledge of local politics, the sympathy flickering around Harold's doomed circle too. Yet the overall arc bends Norman. It blesses the winner. It turns a battlefield into a courtroom, and William into the verdict. Godwinson describes the loan as the tapestry's first display in Britain in more than 900 years, a milestone cultural exchange. Think about that. A cloth made to justify England's conquest will cross the Channel again, not with soldiers but with conservators. Before the move, French teams tested a full-scale facsimile in April 2025, measuring handling, vibration, temperature shifts, and transport risk. That is the second drama of this.
Cavalry in axes, but humidity, light levels, rolling supports, and human nerves.
Textiles weaken because fibers break, dyes fade, and old repairs pull differently. Moving a medieval embroidery demands rehearsal, restraint, and patience. Picture gloved hands near linen, not touching until the moment is right. Everyone breathes quietly. The smallest snag becomes a catastrophe imagined. A museum loan can sound bureaucratic. Here, it is a negotiation with gravity, age, national pride, and the chemistry of thread. If this story is already changing how you see old objects, a quiet like or subscription helps more people find the past. Now back to 1066. Edward the Confessor dies in January, leaving no child and a dangerous question behind him unanswered. Harold Godwinson was crowned King of England after Edward's death. William claimed Edward had earlier promised the throne to him. Across the Channel, William read Harold's coronation as theft. In England, Harold's supporters saw speed and survival, not betrayal there. The embroidery shows ships being built for William's invasion, with axes, planks, shields, and supplies arranged into purposeful preparation scenes. This is propaganda at its most practical. The cloth does not just say William had a claim, it shows he had capacity. Trees become timber. Timber becomes ships. Ships become a crossing. A political idea becomes something you can almost hear creaking. And then there is the channel itself. In the embroidery, water is not emptiness. It is the hinge between claim and conquest. That is why the 2026 crossing feels symbolically charged. The same sea that carried an army will carry an argument back. The Battle of Hastings ended with William's victory over Harold, opening the way for William to take the English throne. The embroidery lingers on bodies and horses, but it does not let grief take over. It hurries us toward regime change. That speed matters. Conquest requires violence, then paperwork, then memory. The tapestry helps with the memory people repeat afterward later. It gives viewers a chain of causes. Harold swore, Harold broke faith, William came. God perhaps allowed the outcome there. When you see a neat chain like that, slow down. Power loves a clean storyline because clean storylines reduce resistance. English experiences of the conquest were not neat. Land changed hands. Languages collided. Abbés rose. Families adapted, resisted, or disappeared from records. The embroidery cannot hold every voice. No object can. But it can reveal which voices power wanted amplified most loudly. The British museum director called the work one of the world's most important and unique cultural artifacts in the loan announcement. That modern language is careful, but it carries weight. Artifact, icon, treasure. Each word decides what kind of object we face. Call it art, and we admire technique. Call it evidence, and we interrogate it. Call it propaganda, and the room sharpens. The Bayeux Museum emphasizes that the famous name is misleading. Technically, it is embroidery, not a woven tapestry at all. That correction feels small, but it changes the intimacy. We are not looking at loom work. We are looking at needle decisions. Somebody chose where the horse's eye would sit. Somebody tightened the curve of a sail. Somebody made Harold recognizable there. That handwork complicates the propaganda. A message can serve power and still carry artistry, humor, local knowledge, and human fatigue. Maybe that is why the tapestry survives in imagination. It is official and unruly at once, disciplined across its length, mischievous at the edges. And now, in 2026, it enters a Breton still arguing over identity, borders, monarchy, museums, and the ownership of memory. Alone is not conquest. Of course it is not. But cultural movement is never neutral when the object carries national myth. Officials describe the 2026 display as part of wider cultural cooperation between the United Kingdom and France around major loans. So the cloth returns not as a trophy, but as a guest. Still, guests can unsettle a house quietly too. If you visit, consider walking slowly. Resist the urge to treat it like one famous image. It is a sequence, almost a performance. Start with hands and feet. Medieval storytellers loved gestures. A pointing finger or turned head can do the work of a speech. Then watch the animals. Some are decoration. Some may be jokes. Some may warn that human ambition makes beasts of men. Finally, ask who is missing. Which English women, laborers, sailors, and defeated families appear only as hints, if they appear at all. That question turns the tapestry from relic into conversation. Not a dead thing under glass, but a pressure point still. The work has been publicly displayed in Bayeux since the 19th century, with modern exhibition history often dated from 1842. Before that, it survived revolutions, relocations, and changing tastes. Survival is not passive. Survival is a series of narrow escapes. In that sense, the 2026 journey is another chapter in its biography. Risk managed, meaning renewed, old thread entering new air. The British Museum display will not answer every dispute. It will, however, put the dispute in front of millions of eyes. The Bayeux Tapestry conquered first by image, then by repetition, then by schoolbooks, souvenirs, documentaries, and the quiet authority of survival. Nearly a millennium later, it still asks us to look at victory with suspicion, and at memory with tenderness too. Because whoever controls the picture of the past does not just explain what happened, they shape what a nation thinks it is. And in 2026, that picture comes home differently, not as a conqueror's banner, but as a fragile witness asking to be read again.